Hello and greetings, fellow StarCrafters, and welcome back to Game 3 in between FXOopen, also known as SlayerSGanzi, and MVPGenius, the purple. He set it on purple, which I'm a big purple fan. I think purple is an often underutilized color, but the purple Protoss player, MVPGenius, who's right here. And this map is Terminus RE. It's made most notable by the fact that there are two expansions. First, the natural expansion, which is a full 8 minerals, as well as the 2 gases here, and then the side expansion, which is 6 mineral patches and 1 Vespene geyser here. This is the version of the map that does not have, in fact, actually rich Vespene geyser here, which means you get 6 gas per trip instead of 7. And this is notable. This is the version that does not have the rocks that lead to the secondary expansion, so this one walkway right here blocks the entire path. Now, we see that both games have involved 6 gates between Ganzi, a quick nexus followed into some form of 6 gateway attack. In Game 1 it was successful, in Game 2 it was not successful, and MVPGenius did the 6 gateways. And then Game 2, Ganzi was able to hold it off and then absolutely destroy his opponent's army with the final attack that was able to push through and just kill him. And then now we're going to see what kind of strategies he goes for if he goes for the 6 gateway attack again. This map isn't necessarily the best for it, simply because there's only one path in, and you can hold up on the rams, you can lift your natural up, and it's much more better for some sort of 3 nexus attack. But we can definitely see it. It's definitely can be successful on this map. It does have a relatively wide entrance, even if there is only one gateway. It's relatively big. Well, we can start talking about the builds that our players are going right now. He is actually getting a pylon. Okay, never mind. That's the normal pylon timing. I thought that was a pylon before a gas, but we do see a gas going down from MVPGenius's part. Perfectly standard. Means he's not going to be doing any sort of 2 gateway shenanigans or anything like that. Cybernetics would be landing right there. And meanwhile, we see no gas on the part of Ganzi. That means for certain, and actually, yeah, we see his minerals right there, that he's going to be expanding. Oh, wow, is he going to be 1 gate expanding? Yep, he's going to be building it on the low ground, or is... Nope, that's not a scout. He's already sent a scout. He's building the command center on the low ground. Wow, this is actually... this can be relatively difficult to hold off. There is only 1 ramp. There's 1 gate, 1 entrance, so that does help it a lot, but certainly... the bunker placement is very difficult to defend both, because the stalkers can actually just do a run by, especially since there's no wall off right here. And so stalkers can just run on in and actually just go straight into your main and start killing SCVs. Meanwhile, so a 4 gateway attack or any sort of even a 3 gate expand attack, like on a 3 gate pressure build, which is relatively common, can be pretty successful here. I'm not sure if that's exactly what we're going to be seeing. We could be seeing something very different as well. So that doesn't matter that much anyway. And we see the probe coming down. He's going to be building the expansion too. So it looks like there's not really going to be too much pressure going on the part of MVPGenius. The Stalker's going to come up and deal a little bit of damage, but that's going to end when the bunker gets finished. There aren't any Groons in StarCraft 2 like there were in StarCraft 1, where with extra range they would actually be able to attack bunkers without bunkers being able to shoot at them again. Oh, where's the Stalker? Stalker's actually going to head off the SCV. That SCV has seen his last days, and he's about to get a face full of the might of Protoss as that Stalker takes him out. It's kind of funny noises on this level. I forgot that the noises that watchtowers make are a little bit different. We do see 3 gateways coming out afterwards. This is the same build that he did, although I don't know if he transitioned to double gas in the previous map. I was going to say it's the same build he did in the last game. It's very close if it isn't quite the same build. Some people get double gas right immediately after the command center is placed, or the new command center is placed in the 1 Rocks Fast Expand, but that's usually if you want to tech up right away. It looks like he's just going to go heavy barracks. Heavy barracks lets him get forces out immediately and means he's not going to be vulnerable to any sort of kind of quick pushes or anything like that. Meanwhile, the Stalker's just going to sit out here to make sure there aren't any enemy forces. It looks like Ganzi is going to go try to deal some damage to the Stalker, and actually, if he's not watching a Stalker close enough, he can take it out. Wow, Stalker's actually only at 22 health. Good job on the part of Ganzi, seeing that his opponent wasn't paying attention. But this Stalker can basically take out any number of Marines, as long as you have careful enough control. And in fact, he is going to take out that Marine, but take 1 extra hit now. He's actually only at 17 health. Is he going to get taken out? Ooh, barely able to get out of there and survive. And it looks like the Stalker's going to be able to make it out just fine. Meanwhile, Ganzi's got 5 other Marines going to send forward. I think he just wants to take the Watchtower. I don't think he's going to try to pursue in, because we do have 2 sentries. That's now going to do 2 more sentries, as well as a Zealot. 5 Marines aren't going to do anything against that. Meanwhile, we see robotics and a factory. It looks like both players are content with checking up. As Protoss player, you need to get at some point, relatively soon, you need to get a robotics bay, generally speaking, because if you don't have an observer out, you can take a lot of damage from Cloaked Banshees, and actually, if you don't have a robotics bay even, then Cloaked Banshees will often just kill you. Like, there's basically no coming back for it. You just lose the game. Meanwhile, we see Stimpack started. It's always good to start that early because it takes a long 170 seconds in order for that to finish. It's an extremely long upgrade. It takes a very long time. Meanwhile, the Protoss army looks relatively formidable. Yeah, I would say more formidable than the Terran player's army, especially since Ganzi doesn't have Stimpack yet. We see, looks like he's not chrono boosting out any workers, but meanwhile just trying to load up. I believe he's fully saturated. Yes. Oh, he's actually not quite fully saturated at his main. Meanwhile, he is almost fully saturated at the natural. So he's relatively close to full saturation. If we go to the income tab, we see that they're relatively even on harvesters, which actually is a disadvantage to the Protoss. He has spotted the observer. Does he have a scan? I think so, otherwise he wouldn't be following it. Or maybe he just wants to track where it's going. Looks like he did not have a scan available. He does have a scan now, though, so at some point he's going to scan it. Oh, he wants to make sure to get that, get that. Ooh, that was a close call. If the observer was able to get away there, then that would have been just a waste of a scan. He's pulling a lot of resources. I'm sure that's for the medevacs that are just about to come out. And we do see weapons level 1 coming out as well. And MVPGenius, of course, getting the Forge to be able to get the armor upgrade. That'll cancel out the weapons upgrade, although usually it's seen as the other way around, where you get excess armor upgrades. Meanwhile, we see a robotics bay that is finished. Luckily for Ganzi, he already has a starport, so it looks like he is going to... I'm not sure where he's putting that factory. I guess he just wants to watch the avenues of attack. Meanwhile, we already have the starport, which can get Vikings, which are, of course, Vikings are quite good at dealing with Colossus. Now, at this point of the game, it's relatively rare. I was actually about to say that it was relatively rare to do any sort of drop, because generally speaking, your army is right in position. However, he might be just checking for a third, because if there's a third, he'd be able to drop, and then actually he might just be dropping right here and then moving it later. As it is, he's at least going to force a cancel and or a kill on that pylon. But he wants to make sure if there's any sort of third expansion. Wow, he spotted the drop, actually. MVP just spotted the drop. So this might actually be a lot of damage to Ganzi. He's going to be able to take it out. Oh! Wow, able to get away. Nice job. He dropped 1 Marine, and then that Marine, absorbing some of the hits from the Stalkers, was able to successfully delay the Stalkers enough that he was able to save both medevacs, because that would have been pretty bad. And he tried to send an SCV in, wasn't going to be successful. An SCV getting sent in without any sort of support on his own. And as a result of that, he's going to have to scan, and as we see from the scan, well, his scan's over now, but he did in fact see the Colossus, so he knows his opponent's going Colossus, and he's building Vikings right now. He does have just 2 medevacs? No, he does have 4 medevacs with the other 2 medevacs. Ah, he is going for a drop around the other direction. I think, he went directly over the watchtowers to make sure that the watchtowers weren't controlled, to make sure he wasn't getting spotted. Meanwhile, we have pylons getting placed all around by MVPGenius, just to make sure he has control. He's able to spot if any sort of drops are going around that direction. That'd be very successful. Oh, does he actually? How does he know about that? Wow. He has actually been able to spot the drop successfully. And he might have seen it with the observer. I mean, that's the only guess I could make. Looks like he's got only a couple worker deaths. He's going to deal some damage to the Stalkers. And no, this one's definitely going to get taken out. Good. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I shouldn't throw around the word definitely so much. It is not going to be taken out. Able to survive 1 hit short. Even a sentry hit would have taken out that medevac. He is lucky. That's a lot of resources tied up in that medevac. Meanwhile, the rest of the army is being positioned right at the watchtower to make sure he can see any sort of enemy attacks kind of coming his way. I don't think he's gauging up for any sort of attack right now, although it's possible once... Oh, he's got a second starport, by the way. That's worth noting. He has a second starport. He's building 4 Vikings at once. He wants to make sure Colossus can take it down quickly and thoroughly. Meanwhile, to counter that, MVPGenius is getting a Templar Archive, so he still has high DPS weapons in the Templar that, of course, deals Storm, and Storm is incredibly effective against Marines and Marauders, against, well, Bio in general, and against Vikings, actually, because if they get hit by, just a couple of hits, it's almost half their life from the Storms. Meanwhile, we see that weapons level 2, armor level 1 from the Terran player are coming up. Protoss player actually is getting weapons first. Now, I believe, I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess at his logic. I believe his logic was that the Forge was a little late, so instead of getting ahead on armor upgrades, which he's already behind, right, he wants to go ahead and make sure that his Colossus and his Archons are as effective as possible, because Colossus get 2 damage bonus to each of their thermal lances, and they do splash damage, and they do full splash damage to everyone who's hit. So Colossuses are quite effective with weapons upgrades. So if you get a couple weapons upgrades, it really doesn't matter how many armor upgrades your opponent has. And it looks like that Marine's just on patrol here to make sure no expansions get snuck. Does he go? Yep, he's going all the way up to the top one. He just wants to make sure nothing's going in there. Meanwhile, we see a couple more barracks coming up. Wants to increase his build. Gainzy, which wants to increase his build. And weapons level 3 and armor level 2. So actually, he's relatively well ahead of his Protoss opponent in terms of upgrades. And he's getting a Ghost Academy. I don't know if he got a scan in or if he just assumed that his opponent would be going Templars, but Ghosts are effective both against Archons because of EMP. Well, everything in the Protoss armor because of EMP, because everything in the Protoss army has shields. Taking out the neutral supply depot to make sure neutral is supply blocked at 0. And meanwhile, well, EMP is effective against all sorts of units, but this we're going to hold that thought because they all have shields and EMP lowers shields. But they're moving in for the engagement here. Able to just, it looks like he just wants to take a couple of free shots. He's actually killed nothing though. Meanwhile, the Vikings are moving and dealing a lot of damage against the Colossus. The Archons get taken out right away. The Colossus are dealing a significant amount of damage, but he's able to move the Marines back away so that they can take out the Colossus. Meanwhile, the Marines are going to be able to rejoin the fight now. The Vikings are landing to deal a lot of damage, and it looks like MVPGenius is in a lot of trouble here. The Bio Army is almost entirely intact, and there aren't any more Colossus to deal with it. Meanwhile, there are a bunch of landed Vikings giving extra support to the ground mission, and it looks like he's going to get the Nexus and the Pylon. He's going to be able to kill a lot of probes as well, or maybe not as many probes as I thought, but it looks like he's able to deal with damage, and MVPGenius is going to go ahead and GG out of this game. That was a great timing attack. It was even before weapons level 3 finished. He just saw that he had enough Vikings, able to build enough Vikings to be able to take out the Colossus. He was able to engage up front, where the Colossus were behind the Nexus, so the Colossus were not able to join in the engagement while they were getting picked apart by the Vikings. That was just absolutely incredible way of being able to get his opponent's army. Gainzy was able to get MVP's army, Genius's army, my mistake, MVPGenius, his army exactly at the position where he wanted to. He wanted to get him down in the south position under the Nexus so that all the Stalkers were trapped down here. Meanwhile, the Vikings with their range of 9 able to come in from the top, snipe all of the Colossus so that they weren't able to deal very much damage. Meanwhile, the Bio was able to snipe the Archons almost immediately because they deal so much damage per second, and then able to just clean up the gateway units right after that with the upgrade advantage that he had, the 2-1 weapons upgrades versus 2-0 weapons upgrades that the Protoss player had, and able to just go ahead and successfully defeat his opponent. That was an absolutely terrific timing attack on the part of Gainzy. Well, I don't know if it's a timing attack, but it was certainly a well-timed attack, and it was just a terrific job on the part of Gainzy, and he's showing what the team Slayers can do. And you know, this was a terrific matchup. I really enjoyed watching this, and this is PGL Milncraft signing off.